Hello everyone, welcome to this video of English for 11th year high school students. My name is Caroline and this time we're going to be talking about comparatives and superlatives. Comparatives and superlatives are adjectives used to say how things are similar or different. By adjectives, we mean that these are words that modify nouns. We are going to start with comparatives. We use comparatives to express mainly the differences but also the similarities between two things, people, or actions, etc. First, we need to know how to form a comparative. There are two ways. The first one is with short words, words that have one or two syllables. We add er to the end of these words. For example, long becomes longer. And the second way is that with longer words, we place more in front of the adjective. For example, intelligent, when we want to use the comparative, we say more intelligent. Now we are going to see some of the uses of the comparatives. One of the uses is to indicate that something or someone has a superior quality, characteristic, or size. For example, the blue circle is bigger than the white one. Or the flowers are more beautiful than the rocks. As you can see, in both cases, whether it's a short word or a longer word, you need to add the word than after the adjective to establish the comparison. Another use is to indicate that something is inferior to something else. So there are two ways we can do this. The first one is that we place the word less in front of the adjective and than after the adjective. For example, if we want to say that something is not as interesting, we say less interesting than. And the example in the sentence would be that class is less interesting than this one. And the other way that we can say this is with the construction not as blank as. For example, not as fast as. And the example in the sentence would be his car is not as fast as mine. So both of these cases are used to indicate that something is inferior to something else. It's still comparing, but in a negative way. And another use is to indicate that two things are equal in some respect. And for this we use the construction as blank as. For example, as tall as. And this in a sentence would be she is as tall as her mother. So in this we compare but to indicate similarities. Something that you need to remember is that some adjectives have irregular comparative forms. So good isn't gooder, is better. Bad is worse, far is farther or further, and fun is more fun. And these are some other exceptions or rules to form comparatives. For example, adjectives that end in E, you simply add the R, so wide becomes wider. Adjectives that end in consonant, vowel, consonant, you double the final consonant and add ER. Big becomes bigger but with two G's. And adjectives that end in consonant and Y, you change the Y to an I and add ER. So happy becomes happier, but you change the Y for an I. And now we move to superlatives. We use superlatives to make comparisons between three or more things. And one thing that you should remember is that when you use superlatives, you always place the article the before the superlative. Always. Now, how to form superlatives? As with comparatives, there are different ways with short words and with longer words. So for short words, those that are one or two syllables long, you add est to the end of the word. So great becomes greatest. The example of this in a sentence would be, this is the greatest song I've ever heard. Then with longer words, there are two ways of creating or forming the superlatives. There is one for when you mean a positive meaning, and there is one for a negative meaning. So how to form superlatives with positive meanings with longer words. You place the most before the adjective. For example, if you want to create the superlative of successful, you would say the most successful. For example, in a sentence, she was the most successful worker. And now, how to form superlatives with a negative meaning for short or long words. We place the least before the adjectives. So, for example, with a short word, fun, the superlative of fun with a negative meaning would be the least fun. For example, doing homework is the least fun activity. And with a longer word, like expensive, it would be the least expensive. For example, I bought the least expensive notebook. As in the previous case, some adjectives also have irregular superlative forms. So good becomes best, bad becomes worst, far becomes farthest or furthest, and fun becomes the most fun. And just as with the comparatives, there are some exceptions or rules as to how to form the superlatives with short words. Rules for spelling. The first one is with adjectives that end in E, you simply add st. So wide, for example, becomes widest, but you just add st, you don't add another E. With adjectives that end in consonant, vowel, consonant, you double the final consonant and add est. So big becomes biggest, but with two G's. And with adjectives that end in consonant and Y, you change the Y to an I and add est. So happy becomes happiest, but you change that Y for an I. Okay, everyone, that is it for this video. I hope it was helpful and I hope you learned. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.